Okay, today I'm so happy to have with us today the one and only Ashley Harris. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. For those that don't know, there are people out here that do good in the world, and those type of people that you meet that are trying to do good in the world, you want to affiliate yourselves with them and try to amplify the message. Can you tell us, first of all, welcome to People Street.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I'm so happy to have you too. Can you tell us who is Ashley Harris?
Oh my, how much time do you have, Doc? You know we're multidimensional.
That's exactly right.
To my brother, first, I would be remiss if I did not say thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor
Yeah,
to
thank you.
be
You're
here on
welcome.
your platform. Ashley Harris, since I'm here, I guess to share a little bit more about my expertise on the clinical side, I can tell you more about who I am as a therapist. I am originally from Virginia, so I
Mm.
am not a Georgia peach. Most are not, but I have been here for 20 years, so they have not kicked me out. I earned my
You've been grandmothered in.
I've been grandmothered in, right?
Yeah, yeah. I thought you were from down here, honestly, when I met you. You were so genteel.
No, no, actually, and it's always I get a lot of people ask me, "Where are you from?" because they don't know what my where my accent is from. But I am from Virginia. My family, my mom's side, who raised me, is up in Richmond, Virginia.
Mm.
So I came down to the A to go to Spelman College.
Oh, okay. I've heard of Spelman College. Can you tell us a bit about it? Yeah, I may have heard of it once or twice.
You heard just a little bit.
Little something.
Just a little bit. Yes, the illustrious Spelman College, a part of the AUC that was
Yes.
chartered in by our mothers and those that came before us, our ancestors, in 1881. Historically Black college and university, the sister
Yes.
school to your alma mater,
Yes.
Morehouse, the house.
The Morehouse College, that beacon on a red clay hill in Georgia, Citadel of Excellence. That one, next door to that great cathedral of learning, Spelman College.
I didn't bring my tambourine today, Doc. So I
No,
had to have my,
I mean,
my
we have a
tambourine.
tendency to get close to the church around here.
Amen. Amen. And so I came down here in the early 2000s, the early trap era. What a time. the the early now I wasn't at the trap, but I was here and the time frame aligned. And so
Yes, yes.
I
You were
came
trap
down
adjacent.
trap adjacent, Doc. You have to coin that term because it is a very real thing. You know. Before Atlanta changed, I got to experience some of what truly made it special. And so I came to go to school. I came to go to Spelman and I attained a psychology. My BA is in psychology, my undergrad degree, and ended up staying because I matriculated on to get my master's in marriage and family therapy with a specialization in sex and trauma therapy,
Mm.
trauma specific. And from that time, got licensed here in Georgia, now also in Hawaii. But because I was licensed here first, I have made a home for myself here professionally, and now professional and personal networks are here. So Atlanta is now home.
Okay, Ashley, there's a lot to unpack there. Majored in psych at Spelman College, right? But subsequently, you went into some fields that are pretty heavy, as they, as some people might describe them: trauma, domestic violence, family issues. What steered you toward that?
Hmm. I love when people ask me that question because I think just like with any career, if you believe in a higher power or the universe or certain things being preordained, predestined, I do believe that not only is counseling has it been just something that I've been interested in doing, but I do believe that it's been a gift, if you will,
Mm.
something that I'm called to do. And now I was born into a family that's very big on education and things like that. My grandfather was a sociologist, criminal justice major.
Oh, for real?
He taught at VSU, Virginia State University.
Get out, yeah.
Was out there. So Dr. Harris was something. And so my mom followed in his footsteps. My uncles, everybody went to school and did what they did, And so here I come along and I'm just fascinated with people and empathy and understanding and the whys and how can I help?
Yeah.
So I think some of that was just it's predestined, but then also I have come to through my experience and going to school for psychology, really invested in having that interest to further my presence in helping hopefully the community heal, specifically the African American community, because we suffer so much from trauma and have not had that outlet to be able to process it or even know what we're going through. And so that's how I ended up in the field, but then coming to love it. So I'm supposed to be here, but I also want to be.
Okay, I love that. Supposed to be here, but also want to be here. Go on, girl. Listen, Ashley. When you were in grad school, um, and you began to, get off into these educational pathways. And then when you began to get field experience, can you tell us, first of all, have you ever had any personal dealings with trauma, either yourself or vicariously through others?
Well, absolutely, absolutely. I think most healers have some experience in that realm. Particularly utilize the phrase wounded healer. It is a very real thing. However, I like to say healed wounded healer because every vote, if you're still wounded, you have to be really careful about the
Mm-hmm.
territory with which you choose to follow. But yes, to answer your question, is so the irony for me is although I work primarily in the fields of trauma and domestic violence, my father experienced a history with substance abuse. And
Mm.
shout out to you, Dad. I saw you just called me. I'll be calling you back in about an hour. Love you. But I had the really, I say, privilege of that experience because he, although has been clean for 30 years, I experienced the absence of him for the first 2 years of my life because of the addiction. As I mentioned to you, my grandfather was big into sociology, criminal justice, substance abuse. And so back in the 80s, that was taboo. That was not what we know today to be something that you have communities and support surrounding services you didn't know as a medical condition. So Dr. Harris, he is phenomenal inspiration and role model for me and for us all. He was in the field of criminal justice and substance abuse. And so my mom, when she, got married and brand new budding life with a young one, it just got married 2 years into the marriage, had found out that my father started to struggle with substance abuse. He was not using when he met her, but had developed through relationship and activities and such. And so that for her, with not knowing and understanding back then in the 80s, again, what addiction was and not having the resources, the support, the education, the understanding, she left. She was like, no, I can't do this. This is taboo. This is a no-no. And so my dad ended up, which is probably a good thing for him through, kind of hitting that rock bottom, had to rebuild his life. But I say that to say, in coming to reconcile with him, one, the trauma of, if you could say, the absence from about 2 to 7,
Mm.
from not knowing him until he came back into my life. My family was very supportive in navigating and rebuilding and establishing a relationship between the two of us. I had never heard anything bad about him. And so I welcomed him, with open arms, thank goodness. So on the perspective of the parental child relationship rebuilding, I understand what that looks like, from both sides,
Yeah.
understanding, rebuilding, but also hearing his story and what led him to addiction, those things that were traumatic for him that a lot of us don't discuss, in our families, what goes on generationally, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
that personal experience. So absolutely, that is a little bit about my story, probably, and what shaped me, certainly, into having a little bit more empathy and wanting to know the why.
Okay. All right. So what happened after you left grad school? Take us along your journey.
It was pretty, I mean, goodness, I'm grateful to be able to say, I knew what I wanted to do and I trusted in source to give me what I needed to be able to do it because if we don't, there's not an end goal here. What are we doing it for, right? And so there's still a need. And so here I still am, but it's been pretty incredible to see the evolution. So graduating, I've been able to work with homeless shelter, working with trauma survivors, working with individuals who are incarcerated, doing assessments for the Department of Family and Children's Services on the reunification side.
Mm-hmm.
I have also had 13 years now of experience working specifically with survivors of domestic violence. And while I have not personally experienced a DV, along my way, I mean, gosh, the statistics have been very true to what I know to be true. 1 in 3 people are victims or survivors of domestic violence, because there's not any place that I've gone or traveled around the world, or person or place or organization that I've come into contact with, where I have not heard a story of someone who has been a survivor or experienced it at some level.
Okay. So when you can you tell us a story about when you encounter, first of all, how do you encounter the people that you provide services to?
Referral wise, or just in general?
It's referrals in essence.
Yes, it depends. So a lot of what I do now is more speaking. Been doing this long enough to where my journey has evolved from just primarily providing services individually to individuals, to consulting with agencies, as well as now speaking, educating the community, our community, not, everywhere globally, but have such a heart for the African American community, and healthy relationships and restoring those. And so a lot of what I do is education based. And so on my website, you can find there's a referral form. I love to speak and educate individuals. So primarily you can find me there, or either through word of mouth.
Got you. Tell us three things that our community needs to know about domestic violence.
One is that it's more than what the eye can see. Domestic violence is not just physical. It also encompasses levels in different domains across, from financial to spiritual to verbal and emotional. And oftentimes those emotional kind of interactions are what people find most difficult to move forward from. And so we don't always see it. So one of the things that I really want us to know as a community is that if a survivor or someone is speaking out about domestic violence and they don't have the proof, or you don't see scars necessarily, that does not mean that they're not victims truly, or that they have not survived some level of abuse, because a lot of it is what we don't see. In the community, there is a lot of victim blaming. So the second point that I would like to focus on really for us as a community is to come together more. I understand, that we've been through a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
but there is so much we can do if we come together. We are not listening to one another. Now, are there times where I would love to get on the internet, on the nets, on Beyonce's internet, and say, this is what you should do, and point the finger? Absolutely. But my role is not that. I'm really in a space where I want us to heal. And so what happens with the victim blaming is that a lot of times we are afraid to speak out, because we are afraid of what the systemic effects of speaking out will lead to. And what I would implore us to do is not only to listen to one another, but, call a thing a thing.
Okay, call a thing a thing.
Call a thing a thing. There can absolutely be an instance where you are afraid of speaking out because you feel that, like, let's say, for instance, a survivor, like a female survivor, and all survivors are not only females, males are affected by domestic violence as well. But let's say there is a female survivor who is afraid to speak out about their perpetrator because they don't want their abuser to go to jail, or that family member doesn't want that abuser to go to jail. That's a valid concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, we don't want the survivor to minimize what they've been through for the sake of, and not seeking justice for themselves. But what I'm hearing people, what they're really trying to say is the system is not favorable and is unjust for Black men. And that is absolutely true. And that means that there's a space maybe where folks want to go into advocacy to advocate for fair treatment and justice, Black men. But we can also acknowledge both, that a survivor, that a victim should not be silent to protect someone who has caused them severe harm. So that would be the second thing. And then the third point, I'm trying to hit on things that we might not talk about as much. Minimization. Minimization is very dangerous if we look at the political sphere right now, even. I won't get too deep into it, but the more that we minimize, the more that behavior that is not appropriate is desensitized. And that is where we get ourselves in a whole lot of trouble. So I would implore us as a community to not wait until the hair on fire situations, to not wait until, oh, well, there's video evidence and oh, we have to see or hear this person say that this is what they did in order to take a threat seriously. That kind of minimizing the little things is what leads up to things that we wish that we would have intervened if we could have.
Okay. Ashley, I met Ashley. I was on I was on a panel at an event that Ashley was responsible for. So I take it, and I know that you do have, would it be characterized as a conference or the type of event, like you have an event coming up or you recently had one?
Yes, yes. So, and I have to say thank you for that too. The particular event that I met you at, that wasn't something that I was responsible for, but
Mm.
that is where I met, that we did meet there. And I was like, oh my goodness, Morehouse, brothers and sisters, all you have to say is you hear that house or you
Mm-hmm.
hear that Spellman, and it's
Yes.
an automatic, a supportive network. And I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, me too.
I really am. There's no other. I mean, I belong to a sorority, love my, pink
Which
and
one you
green.
belong to?
There's a, let me see here. I'm gonna
Oh,
put it. Can you see the, try to keep it close by, right? Oh, there's anytime I'm asked, I'm so proud to share. But there is something, even I'd say that to say the sisterhood and the brotherhood of going to an HBCU, Morehouse Spelman. There is like no other. I know what sisterhood is supposed to look like. Belong to a sisterhood, but that familyhood of that AUC, Clark Atlanta,
yeah,
Morris Brown. You meet people all the time, and it's just you say, I need this, and it's like, I'm pulling up. What do you need?
no
I
doubt.
got you. Appreciate you because being able to stay into contact with you. There is a coming event that I am involved in for the community, which is pretty. It's pretty notable because we'll be educating clinicians in the community, and it's interdisciplinary in nature. But I say that to say I reached out to Taj. I was like, "Hey, Doc, are you busy on this day? Are you available for a panel?" He said, I'm working money. I don't, yeah, I'm available. But, and however, I have a contact for you. And so, not more than 12 hours later, by that next morning, he had referred me to a wonderful sister who I cannot wait to meet, that is going to participate from the medical perspective and be able to add that perspective to the panel. So, I thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome for that too, and I was happy to do it. And of course, the sister that's going to be participating is also a Spellmanite. So and it goes on and on and on. You know what I mean? So that said, tell us a story, man. Like, tell us one of the more interesting when you. Well, I guess this is a two-part question, but let's start with the first. When you have been doing therapy, you said that you've worked with people behind bars. You've worked with the homeless population. Can you tell us an interesting story from a homeless setting that you've dealt with?
Absolutely. That, to be honest, is probably next to some of the work that I'm doing now is probably the most memorable, most impactful for me to this day. Addiction is so real for people. And so this particular homeless center was geared towards accepting individuals who had substance abuse issues and were actively working on and engaging in treatment. And so this women's unit or sector is where I had some of the best memories of the transformative therapy that was done, because there are people who at this point, it's not just emotionally I've hit rock bottom. It's literally you're seeing in the physical world a manifestation of what that looks like. And so losing your job, losing your family, losing hope, losing your a lot of physical abilities that you may have had, all of which you're hoping to be restored, but you're starting back from what you feel like is ground zero. And so I don't have one particular story, but the takeaway from that was that we are all one step away from having something happen, whether we know it or not. And that hope is always, it's a human right. And it's something that we always should strive for, no matter how low we get. So that to me was impactful because we have the stigma in the Black community when it comes to therapy or otherwise, but a certain type of person, whatever that type is, experiences some of these lows. And no, these are your Fortune 500 company owners, your attorneys, your doctors, your educators, somebody's mother though. It doesn't have to be somebody of prestige, but these are the folks that we know, somebody's auntie, cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So it humanized what I learned in the textbooks. All that knowledge is great, but it humanized kind of the aspects of how you create a treatment plan and venture on with a therapeutic process. Just if I could share this too, for people who may not know or who haven't gone to therapy yet, which is amazing. In school we all had to do it. So we still were in that program where we had to go through and have our own counselor for a semester as well. I recommend it. But it's something
Dang,
that I
okay.
think is right positive. But for someone who hasn't gone through the therapeutic process, when you find a clinician that you have a rapport with, this is not just supposed to be you go and you sit on someone's couch and you share your feelings and you leave. You're paying somebody just to talk to, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But the role of a clinical therapist, a clinician, is to have a safe space so that when you come into our office, you are telling us what you think you might need assistance with. We are co-collaborators. I cannot fix anything with you, and I believe in boundaries as well and accountability. And
Okay.
so we're not, supposed to be magicians or anything like that. And so if you hear somebody, that's just taking your money and saying, I can fix you and just come on in and just sit here, that's not what it is. We're supposed to be co-creators. And a part of what guides the process is a treatment plan. And so there are goals. We come in, we write down, just like if there was a medical, a treatment plan, something you're supposed to be on a course of therapy for however long, whatever medication at whatever dose. That is similar in the mental health realm in that we identify a goal. There are objectives for that goal, interventions that we'll talk about, and that we're supposed to see progress on. I mean, we check back in every 90 days or however long.
Mm-hmm.
Aimless process. This is a treatment, a kind of approach that we are supposed to and are taught to have. And so mental health therapy is a very it's significant and can be a significant part in your journey to change and to heal.
Okay. One thing I didn't say, but while you were, sharing your story, my father was also had substance abuse issues, my entire life, so that's something that, I empathize with as well as sympathize with the long-term effects of that, I personally experienced, and understand wholeheartedly and have a heart for people who have a parent or parents that have grappled with those things, you know what I mean? And in my case, it made me stronger, but still, left some scarring there, you know what I mean? And so I'm happy that you're out there and people like you are out there, doing the work, because that thing lingers long after the person is gone. My father's gone, you know what I mean? But you got, it's just something you think about all the time, and then, you also, and the other thing too, if you have faith that each person has a great amount of potential, it's a tragedy, of the potential that is wiped out, when people grapple, with these issues. But, it is good that there are resources available, for them to try to get back. You know what I mean? Because, if everybody just achieve their potential in the community. Man, look, you know what I mean? So, hats off to you for doing that.
Thank you.
Oh, tell us about your event. Tell us where it is, when it is, what it's about.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Gosh, we really are stronger together.
Yeah.
So many of us have those shared experiences, and the outcomes are different for us all. But yes, I certainly look forward to this current coming event. I won't share too much, unfortunately, because I just got the confirmation yesterday. We are almost sold out.
Okay.
It's a good
All
thing.
right now.
But we will have future events, and I will tell you, but just to tell you about what it is so that people, when you're on the lookout and we're able to market those, hopefully through your platform as well.
Of course.
Vision is to have us as a community across disciplines come together to be able to learn more about domestic violence and have the resources that we need to support one another. So it's great. I'm in my sector, what have you, mental health wise, but there's sometimes I'm limited. There's clients that might come to me and they need legal resources. had an attorney. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there
you're
are other
right.
clinicians who might be out here, who have these same kind of clients' concerns. And what we don't want is to be out here just steering people wrong or
Right.
pretend like we know it all, because we do not. I stay in my lane. I have one. So, this conference is geared towards having that interdisciplinary collaboration. And so, having attorneys talk to criminal and legal issues that affect survivors, how they may need to go about filing for temporary protective orders, protecting their children, get guardian ad litems involved if they have any custody issues, things like that. Having a couples therapist come in to talk about de escalation and what the difference is between abuse and unhealthy for me. As a marriage and family therapist trained, right, there's dysfunction in all relationships, no matter what community you belong to, but there are instances where everything is not abuse. So
What's the difference between dysfunction and abuse?
dysfunction is, think about, folks that whether your relationship or other people, you go through ups and downs, highs and lows. You might find yourself on the more lows than highs trajectory. You might be experiencing, dysfunctional communication, doing things to hurt one another, tit for tat, back and forth. These kids love to use the term toxic, but there's not an element of it's unhealthy in those terms. There might be some red flags, things like that. Like I said, huge on the communication, the things we do to one another that hurt one another, not having empathy, understanding. I could go on and on. But for abuse, where we cross that line is that there is an element of control when we're talking about abuse. Abuse is when one person, and there's an unequal power dynamic because one person utilizes what they do to have power and control over another person. So this other person, in essence, does not have the free will that we think that they have, whether it's emotional, so invisible, kind of this invisible cage that they feel like they have around them, or whether it's physical because they feel like if they leave that would be in harm's way. So anytime there is a power dynamic between somebody and their partner, that is when we can categorize it as intimate partner violence. Domestic violence is the same, one and the same, except it's not your intimate partner. It does not have to be necessarily the person that you have a romantic connection with or someone you have had a romantic connection with in the past. It can be you and your roommate, you and your mama, you and your brother and sister, your employer, colleague, anyone.
But to add, I mean to ask, domestic violence does not always is not 100% flowing male to female. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
It can also be the inverse.
It can be male to female, female to male, male to male, female to female, and any
Mm-hmm.
other way you identify. If you are a romantic partner of someone currently or previously, and you are exercising a power and control, and there's an uneven dynamic there with the hopes to manipulate or control someone else, then that is the definition of domestic violence, intimate partner violence. Yes. And the
Okay,
statistics are
okay.
there, I
So
can give you one better. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, girl. Can I say one thing too, Ashley? Because
Yes.
we didn't have a chance to wrap too much. Oh, you came out of Spelman in what, '08, you say?
9. Yeah.
'09. All right. So I precede you by about 13 years. Right.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
no. Yeah, yeah, just for perspectives. Bordering different generations, right?
Yes.
So I want to ask you, I want to comment, when you're speaking, you sound so you have such gravitas. You know what I'm saying? You really sound like some of my professors, to be honest, like some of my female, because I took several classes at Spelman too, and some of the professors at Morehouse are female.
Shout out to Dr. Bass. I don't know if you're still there.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, but when you got a sister that's about it and know what she talking about, and knows, has a command of the language and articulates. I mean, you articulate. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate that.
Thank you, Don.
And I do appreciate that. That's one of the things that we do study over there at Morehouse and Spelman is public speaking, elocution, the rising and fall of the voice, enunciation, all of those things. But I digress. Go ahead on what you're saying, girl.
No, look, I love it. I'm like, I need to go into enroll in some of those classes. I just let my grandmother tell it I got it on, and so I just started talking at 2 and never stopped.
You sound like a preacher.
Oh,
You sound like a preacher, right?
okay, okay.
You go to church, don't you? Do you go to church?
I do.
Because you paused when you said it.
I do no, because I'm thinking about how I've evolved. That might be a whole you might have to bring me back. Look, I'm inviting myself back for a part 2 to discuss that evolution. But yes, I do go to church. I consider myself now to be interfaith. But yes, I do. I was raised in the church, the good old Southern Baptist church.
Okay, interfaith. Okay, so you mean just okay, okay, got you, got you. Okay, so you have a worldview.
I do.
Okay, got you, got you. But you definitely sound like somebody that is the descendant of top notch educators and academics, which is fantastic
Well,
for me.
thanks.
That's my natural milieu to be around. So go on and tell us more, girl. Have you ever had a girlfriend that was in a domestic violence situation and you had to advise?
Well, so yes, I'll answer. I try to answer your question because I know that that does come up quite a bit. But statistically, we know now, and this is cases are underreported, especially in the African American community. So we don't really truly know the statistics, and we don't know if they're categorizing them by physical violence versus emotional and verbal violence. But on average, in general, there are 1 in 3 female victims of domestic violence, and then 1 in 7 male identified victims of domestic violence. So I just wanted to answer your question because with that statistic, I mean, it's happening exponential, rates far more than with females, where females are happening with more of the rates, but with males, that's still not a low number. 1 in 7, that's not a low number.
Mm.
So I wanted to answer that question, but yes, I have absolutely I have discussions to this day with people who confide in instances where it's domestic violence, or there might be concern in my mind. They might not have the word to say, or the verbiage to be able to identify, or the understanding that they are actually in a domestic violence situation. But I try to be very mindful about what I say and how I see it, especially to a victim, especially if it's not solicited. Reason being, you can put somebody in grave danger giving ill advisement. And so you do have to be careful. But then also, my question is to people sometimes before I respond is, what do you want me to say? Am I a listening ear right now, or are you asking me for advice? And then I know how to proceed. But yes, it is very common, and not just to me personally, but we see it in the media almost every week now. It's disturbing. It's unfortunate.
Okay, so Ashley, I'm asking you directly, have you ever had one of your girlfriends be a victim of domestic violence and come to you about it?
I have not had a girlfriend say I am a victim of domestic violence.
What would you do if they did? Like, what would go through your mind? And you're a trained, educated therapist. Because the reason I'm asking,
Yeah.
it's a lot of females, a lot of males. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of females, confide in their girlfriends that are going through this. You know
Uh-huh.
what I'm saying? And somebody might watch this interview and be like, what should I say?
Yes.
What would you
Absolutely. That's such a good question. And I had to pause on that. I had to think about it because I've had girlfriends very close to me tell me that they know somebody who's going through it, or that a family member or so and so. But
Can I share a secret with you?
yeah.
There is a guy that I know that I went to undergrad with that was dating a girl that we all knew that this like freshman year. We knew that they were dating each other. And many, many years later, I mean like 20 years later, I found out that he had been abusing her. And this is a dude that I would never, ever think would do that type of thing. You know what I mean? And so I know that we think it doesn't have, at this point everybody knows that domestic violence I guess it's overstated to say that everybody knows, but many people know that it is the incidence is much higher than it needs to be, which is 0%, but it's high. You know what I mean? But dang, you
Yeah.
know, like you talking about 1 in 3 in women, 1 in 7 in men.
Mhm.
That sound about right. You know what I'm saying?
It's right. It's right, unfortunately. And it doesn't have a face. And so a lot of times what people will do, and people mean well. They do. On average, most people mean well. 70% of people would say mean well, I hope. But there's a lot of times where you'll hear these remarks of, "Oh my goodness, well, he didn't do that to her because she has a loud mouth, and she's the strong one overpowering him. There is no way. He's such a good guy. You do not know abuse. Nobody is exempt from it. The pastors at the church, all the way down to your professors, down to the people that change your oil, and you do not know. There is no face of DV, and often you'd be surprised that the folks who are, have a propensity to, need to have control over somebody else for whatever reason and power. If they have a semblance, and it's multi-layered, but if they have some type of self-respect, a lot of times what will happen is they will pretend, they will put on the face of, I'm a good guy, I'm this
Mm-hmm.
wonderful woman, so you will not know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had a girlfriend, and I'm just gonna, sorry, pause for a second, I want to make sure, because my power light came on, just to make
All
sure
right.
my
Yeah,
power.
you got to make sure
I
that the
apologize.
power is right.
Okay, we're good to go. But yes, if I had a girlfriend that came to me, one, as I said, I would want to know what the severity, what type of abuse. Like, I need to know if this person is in danger, or if this is something that they're enduring that ultimately is going to have just an impact on them, and they need resources and to get the support. The second thing I need to know is, well, what is your intention? Are you wanting to leave this situation, or are you just trying to figure out where to go from here? No one can tell somebody else when the best time is to leave. I mean, of course, now your loved ones, you're going to tell. If you have some men out here, if you're listening, if you have a baby girl that comes to you and they're going through DV, you're lying to go get yourself, some justice on your own, right?
No, you're right about that. It's time to as the Louisiana people say, get the gat.
That's what they say, Doc. That's what they say.
Don't they say get the gat?
Yeah,
Not advocating that, by the
yeah,
way.
I
I'm just
know.
saying. I'm just talking about some people's mindsets.
Not advocating for violence, but
No, absolutely not.
if there wasn't there is a lot of that is called, actually, there's a thing called reactive abuse. So there is
I
now,
do have a daughter though.
see,
My daughter's 23 years old, and I would not be inclined to be very, very hospitable
see,
towards somebody abusing my daughter.
and that is a good thing. Then I know that she knows that, and for that will probably be in a better predicament if she ever got, God forbid, but if she even ever got to that point, she would know it's not okay. And that's a whole nother thing. Support from our men. That's something we need to talk about. But I would ask this friend, where are you? What is your intention? Because safety planning is very necessary, and a survivor sometimes cannot just pick up and go. We know that the first 30 days post leaving is probably some of the most lethal time for a survivor, and also
Mm.
the first year after leaving is a very lethal time. And we're not even talking to, like, if there's a lethality assessment done. I mean, I would want to know, how dangerous is this? If strangulation was involved, then yes, we need to get you some help. It's probably not going to get better. If I know,
So I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I got several questions to
no,
ask you.
it's okay. What you got?
How do you do as a therapist? How would you now? We getting digging into the weeds now. How do you conduct a lethality assessment?
Dr. Jacqueline Campbell, I had the pleasure of meeting her actually 2 years ago at one of our trauma conferences in Hawaii.
Who is Dr. Jacqueline Campbell?
Dr. Campbell is the author and creator of the Danger Assessment. Doctor over at Johns Hopkins, created and took lots of research where you have individuals kind of just come to assess for if a victim leaves, what are their chances of losing their life based on certain characteristics, factors, or experiences that
Like
the
what?
perpetrator has.
So give me an example.
We want to know, there's a scoring system. And so we want to know if the client has experienced a certain number of X, Y, and Z in this amount of time, which an X, Y, and Z would be like punching, kicking, slapping, strangulation. Is there a gun in the home? Are there biting? Is there any type of, like physical damage to property? So just those
Hiding.
more stronger physical symptoms, not to minimize what's going on emotionally, but lethality, we're talking about a risk for harm of life.
So let me ask you this. So what is the score in which an increased lethality is likely? I mean, yeah, I mean, how because what I want people to know is, if somebody comes to a therapist and they are using these types of tools, tell us what does the tool say?
It is, so there's an inner reliability. The score cut out. I won't say what that is. I don't want to lead anybody. There are some people who, I hate to think this way, but if you suggest something, it's like, oh, I don't want anybody taking this into, the office and saying, there's a lethality, but the cutoff score, it's
Well, I mean,
oh,
let's
one
not
to
get into the
13.
score. Let's get
Okay.
into generalities. If you
Okay.
have a score that's pretty high, a
Okay.
higher score indicates what?
Oh,
Increased likelihood of what?
increased likelihood of death,
Okay.
of death or severe harm, severe physical harm,
And
and
this
resulting
was
in loss of life.
a tool that was developed by Dr. Jacqueline Campbell.
Dr. Campbell, yes, and it's online. It's called the Danger Assessment. There's many versions of it, but advocates utilize it often. In my practice, if I have a client who is leaving, or if I had a girlfriend who said I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and he's very physically abusive, or they are physically abusive, and it's harmful. They've left 6 or 7 times. We know that after that point, there's a likelihood of loss of life and not being able to have an opportunity to go back because you've left so many times, and violence only increases each time you go back. So I would absolutely administer this self-scoring exam and look at the scores and be able to tell this friend, like, you are at this level, and if you go back, this is a risk for you. This is what this says. And if that happens, we want to then go about safety planning. So if you do have to leave, what that looks like. Do you need, go ahead.
No. So, safety planning. What is safety planning and what does safety planning look like?
Yes. So for a domestic violence therapist, safety planning is something that you'll do with most clients, whether there's severe harm or physical threat or there's minimal physical threat. It's just something that you want to walk through with the client if they have concerns of their safety. Again, this is from what the survivor is sharing with us. And so even whether we feel like there's a high lethality level or not, if the survivor shares, I feel like I need assistance and I'm afraid or I'm fearful in any way, we want to administer a safety plan. And what that looks like is sitting down with the survivor and going through each area of their life to ensure a backup plan or measure to protect themselves in the event of an emergency. So it's almost like when you had your kids early and you would tell them, don't let any strangers pick you up. And if they do, have a password if they come so that you can know whether or not mommy and daddy sent them, to tell them to say no, all these things that you would do. We are reintroducing that. And so what this looks like, if your spouse or partner or ex does this, or this, and you feel unsafe, have a Ziploc bag where you have your social security card, your identification, your birth certificate. You put them all in a little baggie for safekeeping where you can grab it really readily available, and have it readily available to you. You want to make sure you have your phone charged at any given moment and have a backup charger or something, in your car. You want to have a password with a best friend so that if something happens, he goes through your phone or she goes through your phone, you can text this word so that they know what you've discussed in the plan is. That might mean if I send you the text, I don't know, purple rain, right? And we've talked about this. I talked about it with a friend, and I see that, and that purple rain means to call 911, then I will do that and dispatch, the authorities to her home. Make sure that you have your medications with you. If it gets to a point, like if there's any stalking involved, make sure that you talk to your employers if you feel safe enough to do so. If there's no risk of, retaliation, to let them know, I need security here. I'm being threatened of someone following me. So just going through different details about things that the survivor is concerned about and putting in implementing a plan.
Ashley, let me tell you something, girl. You know your stuff, girl. You know thy stuff.
Been a while. I have the gray hairs. I'll be 40 soon. I can't believe it. I love to say that though. It's a blessing.
Well, I mean, I would not guess that you were a day over for 33.
Bless you. God is gonna show you favor, Doc.
Well, I'm anointed.
You are. Touch not thine anointing. That's what he said.
Ashley, let me tell you something. You have outkicked the coverage, as they say in football. You know what I mean? Just you're a great interview. I do want to ask, Ash, What you watching on TV?
Well, I watch now some of everything. Now that I will be honest about. Let me tell you a little bit of this and that. I love a good documentary. I'll go from the most educational to the least. So a good documentary. Now they've got me hooked on to the Bridgerton. I just started that last week, and I'm on season 2. That's another guilty pleasure. But then I'm also into a lot of these reality shows when I'm
Like
not
which
watching
ones?
HGTV and Hallmark.
Okay.
All of them. I'm very
What's
much
on Hallmark?
have a good dimension. See, don't laugh at me, don't judge me, but
I ain't gonna laugh or
The Golden
or
Girls,
judge or laugh.
10 p.m. And that stays on till about 5 a.m. So the Golden Girls love them. But then
Golden Girl.
yeah,
I thought
thank
you
you.
said documentaries.
No, well, I'm giving you all the network. I'm trying to tell you, I know we don't have that much time, so I'm giving you all of what I watch.
Listen, I grew up on Golden Girls. I grew up on Golden Girl first run, like when the new episodes were out.
Uh,
I watched them with my family. Golden Girls used to come on Friday night, Ashley, and this is the way it used to go on Friday night, 8 o'clock. It used to be the show called 227.
huh?
If you've never seen 227, go watch that. Marla Gibbs from the Jeffersons. It was set in D.C. Fantastic comedy, followed by a show called Amen, which was about the church, the black church. Hilarious, fantastic. And then 9 o'clock would be the Golden Girls.
What?
Those black folk love the Golden Girls. But I got one thing to say to you, Ash.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being a friend. Doon,
Hey,
doon, doon, doon. Come on.
this what
Come on, Ash.
this what the kids do.
Now, if you watch it, what's the lyric now?
Come on, travel down the road and back again. Come on,
Okay.
come
Your
on,
heart is true.
come on. You're a pal and a confidant.
Yes, you are.
Don't.
And if you threw a party,
And what the young man said, invited everyone you knew, but he put a little something on, invited everyone. It was given. It was given what it needed to.
you would see the biggest gift would be from me. And the card attached would say what?
Thank you for being a friend.
Let me tell you something. That's one of the best songs that's ever been written. And it wasn't even like a song that they released on
Right.
the radio.
Right. They need to do another remix. They do.
Listen, there used to be up there off of Lenox Road. You know how you come up 85, Ashley, and then you get off on Lenox Road and you bust a right like you going to Phipps.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, or if you about to go to Lenox Mall.
Uh-huh.
On the right side there are these big office buildings. One of my lawyers used to have an office up in there.
Okay.
But at any rate, on the bottom floor there used to be this lounge. I'm sure it's something else now. 10 years ago it was something different, and they used to have artists up in there performing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the artists, I went in there one night, one of the artists, was a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she closed out her set with "Thank you for being a friend."
Blew
And
it away.
everybody in there knew the lyrics.
Blew it away. That's all you need. That's the grand opening, grand closing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for being a friend.
I love that.
Travel down the road and back again. That's a friend right there, ain't it?
Cause I don't know if I could be traveling up and down the road. And so yes, I appreciate if somebody did it for me, that is a friend.
That's a friend. You got a best friend?
Yeah, I do. I have two. One
Who
of
are they? What are the
You know,
names?
I hope that you can meet. Oh, and you're about to get me in trouble because I didn't have time to share it. But Dr. Keisha Robinson, hello, sister, I love you. She's in
Hey,
Virginia.
okay, Dr. Keisha.
She's my MD, and I'm so proud of her. Family medicine.
She from Spelman.
No, she went to University of Virginia, undergrad and graduate.
Okay, yeah, right on. Beautiful, wonderful school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my bestie, and also Delmar Flournoy. Hey, brother, he's out in LA, and so I don't get to see him as often, but always love. So yeah, those are my.
What? Okay, those your ride or dies. Okay. Is there something that you want to say to people out there? But you're not just a domestic violence therapist. You're a family therapist too, right?
Yes,
And a marriage therapist.
I am. So I'm all about family, learning how we can assess strengths and areas of growth and work together to heal. Everything's on the website. My passion and love is speaking and educating and having a good time. We have to listen to one another. And so I'm not always just going to share the information. I go and I learn too, educate me, help you. Let's help each other. So I would love, if you followed me on Concrete Rose International, if your agency, organization, just you in general are interested in learning more about trauma, and need a therapist, just a lens, someone to consult with, I'm your girl.
I love that. I love that, Ashley. Follow my girl, Ashley Harris, at Concrete Rose. Is it INTL on IG?
It's spelled out. It's spelled out fully.
It's spelled out Concrete Rose International on Instagram. Follow her, and I mean, she is a wealth of knowledge. You'll see that she's the sweetest person in the world, and can provide the resources. But also, if y'all have somebody out there got some speaking engagements, call the girl. That's a Ashley, what colors do you keep closed? Tell me what colors you keep closed.
What you say? Don't look. We do it every time. Now, wait a minute. I have some other things. I won't get up though. I have some pink and the green. Yes.
I love that. Hey, girl, thank you for joining me today. You've been nothing but a pleasure. And, for those of my generation, I don't know if y'all still do it, but they used to say in my generation, how do you feel? I feel all right. How do you feel? I feel like a Spelmanite. Did they do that during your time?
By the time I got there, it was a little bit turned up a little. You see, I think my generation, I told you we got there during the trap era. So it started, don't you wish you were a Spelman Knight like me? I think that's what they started to do, that chanting. And goodness
How I go, Ashley?
Don't you wish you were a Spelman Knight like me? Oh, don't you wish, hey, you were.
Okay, you got to throw that A in there.
Well, they didn't. I was just adding a little extra to.
Oh, that's just your own ornamentation.
Yeah, because I feel it in my spirit, deep down into my soul.
In your bones.
In my deep down. You always, and I need to get more involved, actually. I was not as involved. I was always, all my friends, they're the life of the party. So I love people that are the life of the party. It reminds me of family. But that's all I need, is to be surrounded. I'm more on the low key end though myself. And so I didn't always go out to all the things, the reunions and things like that. And so I'm starting to take these threats seriously. I've been getting from the friends and stuff. So next year, they're starting to get more and more robust. So I do plan on becoming more actively engaged with the alumni associations.
Yes. They have turned the screws and they've issued out various and sundry threats.
Yeah.
You've had to do a threat assessment of those. You know what I mean? Well, Ashley, listen, I thank you so much, girl. I will catch you. Y'all pitching the live video coming soon next week. We got another brother from that Citadel of Excellence in the Southeast on 830 Westview Drive. That would be Dr. George Crawford, my brother from the Olympic class of 1996. Ashley recognized a bariatric/general surgeon. But today we have Ashley Harris, and it don't get no better than that.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, girl.
Starlight, California sky.